Hello and welcome. If you want to skip directly to the conversation about how and why you should be careful who you take relationship advice from, skip to the timestamp 8 minutes and 15 seconds. Thanks. It is time for that thing that I do every year where I open the letter that I wrote to myself on December 31st of the previous year and then write one to open for the next year.
Looks like you put the spider going, that's why.
My avalanche fan on the inside is triggered.
Green pastures told me that I'm filled sin. The devil's water damn it did me in. The holy rollers sing that battle hymn. Now I'm an outlaw from within. Well, I came to sin. I came. There's the willow leaves on the willow trees. Keep a checking as they do. I'm gonna start stepping over this mountain and walk on water's blue. Because the Cretans lie and the police spy. We know a miracle to come their way. When they could and should easily turn their head to the sky and pray. They say, Father, please have mercy for what we done. Let sleeping dogs lie in the burning sun. As the vultures spin and the cultures sin, there's ways how we counted nowhere up.
So I'm actually just really proud of myself for drawing today. And I'm like done but not done. I mean, you can tell that this doesn't look very good. And I don't like exactly know what to do to make it look good, but I can't really just leave it how it is. So I'm gonna probably go in with another session. Oh my gosh, I think I'm finally done. I'm gonna photograph it in good sunlight tomorrow and write on a little piece of paper like my YouTube name in case like it gets picked up and shared around a lot, and listen to the TED Talk, Every Argument Against Veganism as well. And yeah, so I'm gonna wait till tomorrow to photograph it and stuff really nicely because the daylight's pretty much gone. So I decided to just go at it with a pen, drawing like straight in with a pen, not even sketching with the pencil first, to just see how it goes. I think the little chick came out cute and fine, and the calf is, as you can tell, giving me a struggle. So time will tell if I'm gonna like complete this and put it on a shirt one day, or if this was just a lesson learned. So I found these murdered chicken corpses on a shelf that's not refrigerated, and it just shows humans' lack of respect and concern for the animals that they murder for their food. So I just brought it over here. Just don't understand like why I see that so often. Here's my hand for size reference.
Go downstream. Woo. Oh shit, he turned. Yeah, I'll do these little spins. Yeah, I'm drinking out of this girl power cup.
It won't focus on it.
And they also wanted to try to sell me Lead Belly's guitar for $500,000. I even asked David something to buy it for me personally. Thanks.
Best impression. Sweet notes. On the 26th of December, Keegan and I ended up having an argument, not like too much unlike other arguments we've had. In fact, kind of a repetition of arguments that we've had many times, but it actually ended up turning the next day into something really bad, where there was, he said he wanted to break up, and later now he says that he was just saying that out of emotion and didn't really want to. And I just have learned a lot from the experience. And then he wanted to do a break instead of a breakup, which was going to be a month, which is insane. And I only made it 1 week before I reached out to him and was like, yeah, this is not gonna work. I don't want to get into all the details, but we're totally fine now, as you have seen in the video clips. But it was, that night was one of the hardest nights of my entire life, and this experience was very hard for me, very hard. But I have learned so much, and I want to show you a book that has like saved my sanity. So yeah, you guys, if you want to find a happy, healthy relationship, or save the one that you're already in that you want to keep, please read this book. The bulk of our relationship problems has honestly been me having been a survivor of certain kinds of abuse and trauma in my life. I have triggers and insecurities from that, and just me bringing things up all the time that hurt me and having a hard time letting go and moving on from those things, combined with him not responding as sensitively as he should to me doing that. But I learned that I have most definitely the anxious attachment style, and that Keegan has overall, mostly he scored the highest for the secure attachment style, but he also has a moderate score for the avoidant attachment style. So I'm learning a lot from this book, and it has made me feel so much better about myself and made me realize like some eye-opening concepts. Like maybe I'll just read you a couple of passages real fast. I'm not through the whole book yet, but I kind of just want to read a couple of things. I mean, basically I found a lot of inner peace about myself through this book so far, because you know, when you have sensitivities and triggers around things and you go to your partner and say, hey, I really need you to not do this thing because it causes me immense pain, a lot of people on the outside will look at that at face value and see it as you being controlling or them having to walk on eggshells around you. But like what this book is showing me is that, you know, it's actually very simple what my partner needs to do to make me stay secure and not be triggered. And that as long as my partner does that, like I'm a really good loving partner, and it's not like as bad as how people make it out to be. So there's so much good stuff in this book, including if I find the page about how the term codependent was actually created for people dealing with drug addicts and how it actually doesn't apply to like my type of situation. It made me feel a lot better because society will really make me feel like there's something wrong with me, like I'm just so needy or so clingy, and it's confusing because I'm actually very introverted. I love my alone time, and I have never identified with being clingy or needy. I just have certain needs just like everyone else. But I just want to read you this part. So as like a anxious attached person like myself, what happens when you follow common dating advice? Say you decide to follow the advice of many popular relationship books. They offer guidelines to help you, quote, land a partner, such as don't make yourself too available. Say you're busy even when you're not. Don't call him, wait for him to call you. Don't appear to care too much, act mysterious. Even really like woke teachers like Aaron Dowdy teach that kind of stuff. Not that he's very woke because he thinks that you can pay for animal products even though nothing high vibe happens in a slaughterhouse, but I digress. Presumably, you preserve your dignity and independence in this way and gain your partner's respect. But in fact, what you are doing is behaving in a way that is not true to your genuine needs and feelings. You wave these aside to appear strong and self-sufficient. And indeed, these books and the advice they give are right. These behaviors may indeed make you seem more attractive. What they don't mention, because they are unaware of attachment science, is that they will make you seem more attractive to a very particular kind of partner, an avoidant one. Why? Because in essence, what they are advocating is that you ignore your needs and let the other person determine the amount of closeness/distance in the relationship. The avoidant person can have his or her cake and eat it too, so to speak. She or he can enjoy the thrill and closeness you naturally project when you are together without having to consider your needs for intimacy and togetherness the rest of the time. By being someone you're not, you're allowing another to be with you on his or her own terms and come and go as he or she pleases. Another problem is that this type of game playing is only an act for you. It's going to backfire in the long run. All right, I found the page and I have to read it. So, the codependency myth. The codependency movement and other currently popular self-help approaches portray relationships in a way that is remarkably similar to the views held in the first half of the 20th century about the child-parent bond. Remember the happy child who is free of unnecessary attachments? So basically they're referring to these old school teachings from the 1940s that in order to make a baby self-reliant, you ignore them when they're crying, which is actually just the worst thing you can do and is just going to make them be all fucked up. Today's experts offer advice that goes something like this. Your happiness is something that should come from within and should not be dependent on your lover or mate. Your well-being is not their responsibility and theirs is not yours. Each person needs to look after himself or herself. In addition, you should learn not to allow your inner peace to be disturbed by the person you are closest to. If your partner acts in a way that undermines your sense of security, you should be able to distance yourself from the situation emotionally, keep the focus on yourself, and stay on an even keel. If you can't do that, there might be something wrong with you. You might be too enmeshed with the other person or codependent, and you must learn to set better boundaries. The basic premise underlying this point of view is that the ideal relationship is one between two self-sufficient people who unite in a mature, respectful way while maintaining clear boundaries. If you develop a strong dependency on your partner, you are deficient in some way and advised to work on yourself, become more differentiated, and develop a greater sense of self. The worst possible scenario is that you will end up needing your partner, which is equated with addiction to him or her, and addiction, we all know, is a dangerous prospect. While the teachings of the codependency movement remain immensely helpful in dealing with family members who suffer from substance abuse, as was the initial intention, they can be misleading and even damaging when applied indiscriminately to all relationships. So that just blew my mind. I didn't know that that was the origin of codependency. And when I came across these, whole happiness comes from within teachings and stuff, there's definitely truth to them. And I don't want to debunk that completely, but I was really hardcore on that. But that just it's just not realistic. And it just ignores that you can't, people say love without attachment, but that's not possible. If your partner does something to trigger you or hurt you, it's actually a form of victim blaming. Now that I'm reading this and thinking about it twice, it's a form of victim blaming to blame that on you just not being unaffected. It's your fault because you should just not be affected by that, rather than it's their fault for doing the transgression. But again, without getting too much into it, I learned a lot. I learned that I need to let go of things and I need to give him space when he needs space. But at the same time, more than a couple of days of space is a little why you need that much space, And if we were to go this whole month with no communication, we weren't going to act single or anything. It was just no seeing each other, no communication. And he was gonna go on our road trip that we've been planning for a year by himself, which is just really hurtful, and he's not doing that anymore, luckily. But if we were to do that, we would just be in the exact same space a month later, only I would be filled with bitterness and resentment from a whole entire month of being constantly triggered and anxious about the status of our relationship. And it's just so obvious, communication is the only way to solve anything. So why cutting off communication would help anything is beyond me. Again, if it's more than a couple of days of just taking space and processing things, that's understandable. But what he wanted to do, I think he was just being quite avoidant. So we went to therapy and we just used effective communication, and I had him buy this same book too. And yeah, that's it, A lot of shit is just misunderstandings and triggers, and you just have to learn how to communicate, and our society does not teach that. When it comes to life decisions and life advice, as long as you're not hurting anyone, you should always just listen to yourself rather than going to advice to other people. One thing that is so important is, not going, like, going for advice is not just all a bad thing, but you have to make sure that the person you're getting advice from has the life and reality that you would like to have when it comes to the topic they're giving you advice about. For example, you wouldn't take advice about relationships from your family member who's never been in a healthy relationship before. That kind, just real basic shit. You have to remember not to just indiscriminately take everybody's advice, because I was getting some bad advice from well-meaning people, but those people were, they don't have the reality when it comes to love that I want to manifest. So it wouldn't have been smart for me to listen to it. And that advice is like what the book was talking about like kind of playing games like, oh, well, if he's doing this, then you do it back or you become less available. But if I would have followed that advice for a month, this relationship could have fallen apart, Like, you have to just be true to yourself and honest about your needs and boundaries. In my last video where I talked about what I learned in 2021, if I could go back and just redo starting dating Keegan, I would literally write down in bullet point format, these are my boundaries and these are my needs. And if you can't meet them, then I guess I'll find someone else, Like, I just wish that I had the confidence to do that back at that point. And the sooner you do it, the better. Because you don't want to live a lie, and you don't want to live to where you just turn into what you think your partner wants you to be, because that's just going to be misery. And on his end of things, he was also taking bad advice from people who don't really have the reality that either one of us want when it comes to the quality of our relationships and love life. So, and that advice led and influenced him to even do the whole "we're breaking up" thing, which he took back the next day. But it's just like, to put it quite simply, only take advice from people who have the reality that you would want to have for yourself. And if you're in a dispute with your partner, communicate in healthy ways. Read a book on how to do that first if you need to. Communicate in healthy, not ego, not triggered ways with each other, instead of not talking to each other and just going to other people for advice who, first of all, they don't know the whole situation. They don't know like the other person's side from their own mouth. Like, it can be nice to vent and be validated on your end of things, but beyond that, it's kind of like it just turns into issues. Talk to each other. It's the only way. It's crazy because we have this really amazing relationship that a lot of people would kill for, and we were each going to advice from people who all either don't have a relationship, never have had a healthy relationship, don't even want to be in their relationship, are settling for much less in their relationship, that doesn't make sense. But disclaimer, of course, unless your partner is being abusive or there's like insane red flags everywhere, then obviously, a person doesn't have to have like this ideal relationship life in order to let you know, like, hey, you're in an abusive situation. I'm not talking about that. Like, that's not really the case for us. And I have to always say this to remind people, as kind of like advocating for myself and advocating for other people who are like me, just because you have insecurities doesn't automatically mean that you're an abuser or automatically mean that you're controlling or something. A lot of people jump way over to that conclusion, and that's not fair. And that, I deal with that all the time of like, oh my God, am I an abuser? Am I like this and that and whatever? Am I ruining everything? Is it all my fault? But like, no, not in my case. And having a therapist who confirmed that is helpful. Plus, if you're like me and you do worry about this, you got to remember that like honest abusers, like real abusers, they're not self-reflecting on whether or not they're abusers. they would not even welcome that possibility. Like, they're just not even capable of considering it in probably most cases, so. But again, as I've said many times, this whole second guessing comes from our society full of victim blaming and gaslighting, and we live in this society where people are more offended by people speaking up against mistreatment or violence or abuse than they are by the actual mistreatment, violence, and abuse. And there's all of this like shifting of the blame onto victims in this society, and it's just a whole mindfuck, and it happens to so many people. And we end up with the most sensitive, loving, empathetic, well-meaning, good morals people feeling like they're the ones who should shut up, or they're the ones with something wrong with them. And then the other ones who are like narcissistic or on power trips or abusive are the ones that end up feeling super empowered to like rule the nation and to oppress others freely, you know? But that's just like another whole side tangent of how our society creates all of these things. By the way, that video footage of the TV with the live stream, the band was called The Native Howl. They're one of my favorite bands. I've seen them like 4 times live. They were supposed to play in New Jersey recently. They ended up not being able to, but I couldn't go anyway because of, you know, the thing that you're required to have in order to go to a concert. And by the way, I'm very happy that the thing was blocked, which was attempting to make people have to have a thing in order to work at certain businesses. So that's good. That's a huge win, because where there is risk, there must be choice. But anyway, please subscribe to my main channel, Alicia Demi. That's ALISIA space DEMI. If you are not yet vegan, watch the documentary Dominion, free on YouTube, or watchdominion.com, and listen to the TEDx talk, Every Argument Against Veganism. I've been really shifting around my priorities and learning how to have a good work-life balance, because I tend to vacillate from workaholism and burnout to doing nothing and feeling stuck and in limbo because I don't know what to do. So I'm figuring out like, what do I actually want to spend time making on my main channel and what do I not? And at this point I'm thinking, okay, well, because of the views that, like the videos that actually get views, I'm gonna focus more on disruptions and protests and less on like commentary types of videos. I'm still gonna do them, but just not nearly as much, because I don't want to spread myself too thin. And I've created a lot of goals this year that are outside of my YouTube channel, and I spent like all of 2021 way focused on my main channel, and that's fine and all, but it's not how I want to continue to be living. So yeah, anyways, happy 2022.